The world has come to know that Africa is the fastest growing, and as a result of that fast growth, this is reflected in the number of young people. So the number of young people is a consequence of the demographic changes that are being observed in the region. As health conditions have improved, the survival of young persons has also improved. As we've seen poverty come down in many parts of the region through public interventions, it's become easier for younger people to survive. All of these have contributed to the growing youth bulge that we observe. The problem that Africa faces is the fact that it has not planned very well what to do for these new young men and women. It has not planned that. So the numbers are huge and they are growing, but there's nothing planned in terms of how they will be used or utilized to make a change, make a difference to most African economies. That's why we have this problem. And it's going to get worse. The number of young people will grow much faster in the coming years. And as that number grows, there will be many other problems that will come as a result of that. The pressure on education will increase. The pressure on health facilities will grow. The pressure on employment will be even more challenging. That's why we need to find a solution to the problem. Now, it's not going to be easy. There's no one solution to the challenge. It's one that calls for a radical, long-term perspective that will eventually see a solution to the problem. Usually, when people think about creating jobs and finding employment for people, they always talk about the mismatch between the kind of training they have received at universities and what the job markets are looking for. You often will hear this back and forth on who is to blame for the fact that young people leaving our universities cannot find jobs. What we are advocating is a future in which we do not blame one sector or the other for the absence of jobs for young people, but look at a future in which the universities can contribute in a very significant way to making it possible for us to create jobs. So universities have a role to play in doing the research that will lead to the kinds of employment that will be available or could be available. I've heard people talk about things like building industries without smokestacks. How do we, in the light of the current environmental challenges, develop industry? What type of industry? Are we going to continue with manufacturing the same old way? Universities can do the type of research that will show us the way forward. The one thing that we've learned, which has been very, very crucial in many other parts of the world, is the role of technology. Technology in making it possible for people to be more productive than they have otherwise been. Technology works in many different ways. Technology, if not properly utilized, can take away jobs that young people would have found. If properly utilized, technology can make these young people more productive, more effective, and more able to provide jobs to others. So it is the responsibility of universities working with policymakers to think about what types of technology make it easier for young people to be productive. What kind of technologies make it easier for young people to offer jobs to their colleagues? And what kind of technologies make it easier for them to be climate conscious, for them to be more environmentally friendly, and so on. So it's the role that we believe universities must play in advising governments on the technology front, in advising the private sector, industry, on what is possible and what should be in making younger people more productive and more effective. Today, the role that Africa plays in the global marketplace is not a very positive one. We see Africa export many of its young unemployed people to Europe, and it creates social tensions in Europe as well as political tensions. That can be changed. There's nothing wrong with support that provides young Africans the tools that will make them more effective at home. So in the new global architecture, I would like to see both Africa and non-African countries sit down and think about what can we do that will support these young people, make them more effective, make them productive, make them able to find livelihoods in their own countries. How can we support them to be part of a global system of exchanges so they are able to move around the world freely, offering their services without having to migrate? So we need to think about a world in which greater mobility for people becomes a way of life, that everybody, regardless of where you live or where you come from, whether you're from Africa or you're from Asia, you're from Europe or from North America or South America, you are able to move around the world freely and be able to go back home and be effective. So that's how I want to see the global conversation evolve. That's how I want to see the world in a more globalized system function, where greater mobility, not a permanent move, will be taking place. I am very, very happy that the Catholic University of Milan is very interested in a partnership with African universities. I have maintained often that no one university in the world is in a strong enough position to have the kind of impact that universities should have on policy making, on economic development, on social development. But when they work together, the likelihood of positive outcomes grows. They are much more likely to be effective in Africa. They are much more likely to be effective in Europe. So cooperation among universities is very important for the survival of the universities themselves and also for the larger impact that they can have on society. So I'm very, very happy, and I think this is going to yield very positive outcomes.